It is a great honor for me to be speaking here on this 10th annual mediation forum of Gertrude Shope with the distinguished panelists. I heard Mlambo saying Avoko Bam. Yeah, I agree, and I believe in generational mix. I've seen Avoko work, and I have benefited a lot from working with them. I was privileged in the previous administration. Many people don't know it was myself and Minister Dlamini Zuma who were doing the regulations for COVID in South Africa. Yeah, she will make us work until the wee hours of the morning. Kids will be playing around, complaining. But she will always say, no, we can't sleep before we complete the task. So I have seen the work, and we have also learned, even former Minister Dr. Pando, we learned a lot from her work. She was the chair of the ANC when I was the leader of the Youth League. And they used to whip us when we were getting out of hand. So it does benefit to have Avoko for us as a younger generation. So that generational mix is important for any society to grow. So it is for that reason that we continue to invite them to participate in our forums, to give us the knowledge that they have. What they have shared with us here, you may not find in any books. That Shope was a sniper. It may not be in any of the history books. So it is a distinguished honor for me to be with them sharing this platform, and I'm glad that they are able to share this platform with their young daughters and others who are learning from them to take this baton forward. We are here today to honor a life that was not just lived, but was purposefully, powerfully, and relentlessly given. We are here to celebrate the monumental legacy of Gertrude Shope, who was a mother, a warrior, a strategist, and the rock upon which our freedom was built. To speak of Shope is to speak of the very history of the struggle for the liberation of South Africa. In 1956, women from all walks of life and backgrounds marched to the Union buildings. Their objectives was to be heard, to have their protests registered, and to show their strength in both numbers and pure determination. They marched against discrimination, racism, inequality, and oppression. They stood firm with their children on their backs and stated, "We shall not rest." This code, voiced by many that day, carried forward through the decades as the liberation movement gained momentum, through the democratic transition and further into the 30 years of our democracy. We shall not rest. And indeed, we cannot rest while the face of poverty in South Africa and many parts of the world remains black, and in particular, black women. We shall not rest until all have freedom and equality. That is still the objective of our dialogue today. We shall not rest until women are included, until women are afforded the same status as others, until women can speak and make decisions that affect their lives. And this is not just the responsibility of women, it's the responsibility of the whole of society. On 31 October 2000, the United Nations Security Council unanimously adopted Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, the first resolution to recognize the disproportionate impact of conflict on women and to call for their full, equal and meaningful participation in peace processes. At that time, Namibia held the presidency of the Security Council. As Mlambo Muka has already said, Her Excellency Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah, the Minister of Women Affairs and Foreign Affairs of Namibia, played a pivotal role in steering the resolution tabling, negotiation and eventual adoption. This year, as we mark the 25th anniversary of this landmark resolution, we are reminded of its enduring significance. Resolution 1325 firmly established that sustainable peace cannot be achieved without the active involvement of women, transforming the global understanding of women in conflict from passive victims to essential agents of peace building, reconstruction, and reconciliation. The women in 1956 faced dual discrimination based on racial discrimination and gender patriarchy. Sadly, this system remains. The statistics speak for themselves. Women who participate in peacekeeping operations are only 10% as of January 2025. Senior ranking officials are only 3%, and civilian staff reach 30%. South Africa notable remains at the forefront of contributions while adhering to global and national targets. We can go further. Women in cabinet position or government in general sits at 22%. It is approximately that gender parity worldwide will only be achieved in 130 years if we continue at this pace. Yet armed conflict is at an all-time high since 1946. Last year, 2024, surpassed 61 state-based conflicts, including those that were classed as full war. The recorded fatalities are at approximately 160,000. There has been a significant and steady increase in political violence of late, and armed conflicts continues to rise in frequency, in scale, and in reach. This speaks to global insecurity and instability. Excellencies, the effect this has on women is devastating. Women make up approximately 40% of civilian deaths and suffer injuries because of explosives or bombardment at their homes or where they work and care for their families. Sexual and gender-based violence remains a tactic of war. Armed groups and even some state forces continue to use rape, sexual slavery, forced pregnancy, and sexual torture to terrorize and destroy cities. We see the effects of these conflicts in heartbreaking pictures of Sudanese women with children on their backs fleeing a genocide. We see it in faces of Palestinian children starving as a result of man-made famine, and of course, most recently, in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. It is more often the women who fall victim to unrelenting attacks on villages. This continues in economic devastation, loss of livelihoods, destruction of infrastructure, and limited access to resources, all because of conflict. It must also be recalled that women take on additional roles in society. They become leaders, sole breadwinners, caretakers, doctors, teachers, and yet remain excluded from peace negotiations. Despite clear evidence that the inclusion of women can improve and lead to more durable and sustainable peace, as Mayor Kosazana has already said. Today, women make up only approximately 5% of negotiators, 9% of mediators, and only 19% of signatories to peace and ceasefire agreements. Many peace agreements lack gender provisions. We are failing to normalize inclusion of women in peace negotiations and agreements. Following the adoption of Resolution 1325, 10 other UN security resolutions were adopted, ranging from recognizing sexual violence as an act of war, focusing on women participation in post-conflict peace building, calling for accountability, monitoring, and reporting mechanisms. However, adhering to the UN security resolutions remain inconsistent, although it has become globally recognized. 10. Implementation lacks. Without adherence and obligatory legislation, these resolutions risk being limited to symbolism rather than they can contribute to transformation. South Africa, like many other nations, has drafted and committed to a nation action plan. We have begun the process of developing our second generations through an inclusive and participatory process. Many of the actors and implementers of the next SNAP are present in this room. We are positive that our second generation NAP will be as progressive as the first one. I've heard you Dr. Mlambo with regards to the protocol. We'll follow up where it is and why I will not attending to the ratification. Esteemed guests, our own history cannot be wished away. It remains with us in many ways, and it has laid the groundwork for what we have to strive for. And women have remained at the forefront of our ongoing transformative policies. Additionally, this department offers specialized capacity building programs on conflict resolutions, negotiations, and mediation. Through the diplomatic training, research, and diplomatic branch, DIRCO has trained over 1,000 men and women in conflict resolution, mediation, and negotiation, many of whom now form part of the broader Gertrude Shope Women's Mediation Network. This investment in capacity building represent a concrete deliverable towards the implementation of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, which calls for the meaningful participation of women in peace and security process. There can no longer be an excuse why women should not participate in the mediation efforts because they have the skill. They've been trained, they've been capacitated. By equipping both women and men with the tools to address conflict and promote dialogue, South Africa continues to advance its commitment to fostering inclusive, gender-responsive approaches to peace building, thereby contributing to sustainable and durable peace at national, regional, and global levels. This training started as a program that was aimed specifically at diplomats from the continent, and it eventually grew with the assistance of like-minded partners, such as Norway, as Ambassador Jomo has said. And we continue to thank Norway for their contribution for this program to be a success. This program has also tracked from grassroots mediators 1 and 2. It was during one of these programs where, at the behest of the participants, the then Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ms. Nkwana Mashaban, established this very forum. The forum was to be a space for women to gather and share experiences, their ideas, and their best practices. It was to become a platform that allows for innovation and dynamic approaches to peacemaking. The first forum in 2015 had begun with a quote, Basadi Batwara Tipa Ka Bokhaleng. Translated, it means women hold the knife by the sharp edge. These were fighting words. 10 years later, women continue to hold the knife by the edge, and today we gather not just to remember May Shope, but to honor a life that helped shape our country's democracy. May Shope was one of the outstanding matriarchs of our struggle. We should remember that she was a torchbearer for women emancipation. In many ways, she taught us that there is no liberation and peace without the involvement and the voice of women. May Shope took on many roles, especially a soldier for liberation and a teacher. You can hear that I read this from the books. What is history to us, to you, it's current affairs. That's why you told us about her abilities in the field. These various roles adopted by May Shope led to her name being chosen as the leading figure of this forum. It illustrates that the many roles that women take on, whether by choice or necessity, allows them to be in the best possible position to make decisions on peace. The forum continues to thrive, discussing women's involvement in peace and security, inspiring the solidarity of women in the creation of women mediation networks, and posing challenging questions to decisions and policymakers. This forum remains an important platform for these discussions to occur. As we look back at the past 10 years, we need to revitalize the women, peace, and security agenda. We had not anticipated the impact of COVID-19 pandemic will have had on the progress of women, and once again, we must find methods to ensure that women inclusivity and participation in the peace and security agenda is a priority. Mediation remains an important part of South Africa's history and forms part of our foreign policy imperatives. It is an integral part of peacemaking. Therefore, utilizing all tools at our disposal to ensure that future mediation discussions and efforts are successful is tantamount to reaching sustainable peace. Platforms such as this must find dynamic ways of mediating, be it through using technology to reach and include more parties to the discussions, or recognizing the cultural sensitive mediation practices to prevent misinterpretation and ensure understanding. All of this should be done whilst adhering to national and international law practices. Furthermore, acknowledging community-based mediation practices and grassroots diplomacy will ensure that we are part of peacemaking architecture and processes. It will bridge the gap between those on the ground and policy developers making decisions. We must use these homegrown tools to spread our commitment to global equality, peace, and development. Today, women and children in Gaza, in the Ukraine, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Sudan, are struggling through the burden of war and armed conflict. It is these unwilling victims who are forced to survive in horrific circumstances. As we close this Women's Month, looking back at the achievements and progress made, we must repeat the mantra, we shall not rest. There is more that needs to be done and more goals that needs to be achieved. We cannot rest until these goals are achieved. In 1956, women had stated, "Watita bafazi, watita imbogodo," as a battle cry. This phrase epitomizes the strength, resilience, and commitment of South African women, who were determined to fight for a revolutionary change and face the true heart of segregation. That battle cry rings true today as women continue to face violence, oppression, and inequality. Now, 10 years since the start of this platform, 25 years since the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, our revitalized battle cry, "We shall not rest," should echo through the chambers and rooms where discussions and decisions take place. It must be heard in schools and in the workplaces, in global institutions and conference rooms such as this, to remind everyone that we shall not rest. And all the participants of this forum, you are now the ambassadors of Mayor Gertrude Shope mediation program. And may her values live through you. And may we see you in many platforms brokering peace in conflict resolutions in many parts of the world. And may all the platforms that are given to you open the roads for peace and stability in the world. I thank you.